Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and we're talking sport. And you're very welcome to Talking Sport, our last Talking Sport of 2013. And I'm joined in studio today by three guests. We've got Chris McNulty of the Donegal News, Alan Foley of the Donegal Democrat, and Paul McGovern, who's the PRO of the Ulster Senior League and St Eunan's GAA Club. And thanks to Paul for coming at short notice and at huge expense.
No problem, Charlie.
Well, half that's true anyway. I will not tell you which half. Guys, thanks for coming in. And end of year, it's always a good time to look back and a good time to look forward as well. So we're going to look back and sort of put the focus on maybe the big winners in terms of Donegal sports people over 2013. And I suppose no bigger winner than Jason Quigley. Chris, and I'll start with you because I know you followed his career very intensely and been there for most of the big occasions. I mean, we knew he had talent, but anybody had any doubt about it? It's well and truly buried now in 2013.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was this day last year. He won the European Under-23 Championships out in Russia. At that stage, Jason Quigley had won nothing at senior level. He wasn't even regarded as a senior boxer in the high performance team.
Yeah,
and he went into last January, I suppose, with a lot of pressure on him. He was in his fourth senior campaign, and he simply had to win that senior title because the Sports Council's grant they were sort of starting to assess, where he was going. He just had to take the step. And like for me, if you're looking back at 2013 and asking what the highlight is, it was that night he beat Darren O'Neill in the quarter-final. Not his final, not anything that followed, because that was the win that allowed him to go forward.
O'Neill was
there.
Obviously considered to be one of the stars.
Yeah, like O'Neill was the captain of the Olympic team, and he was, I suppose, the man at middleweight. And when Jason beat him, I think he got real confidence from it. It wasn't his best victory. He won on a countback. It was tense. It was nervous. It was everything. But the big thing for him was getting over the line, and everything that followed for Jason Quigley, it just absolutely rocketed from there. And watching Jason's career, like I keep going back to that day in 2005 where it was one of my first markings as a sports journalist, was a wee tournament in the Finn Valley Centre, and Peter O'Donnell says to me, watch young Quigley, he's the star of the future. And it was just for a wee line on it, you kind of asked him, where do you want to go in your sport? And he says, I want to be the best boxer in the world. And I suppose at that stage you kind of laugh and fair play to this wee kid. But I suppose you look back now and you think, that drive stayed with him. And certainly 2013, Charlie, was the year of Jason Quigley. Like, fantastic.
Won in the World Championships. I mean, fantastic then, Alan, because if anybody who hadn't taken notice then really was forced to take notice that he went out there and he got a gold medal. It was fantastic.
In
the European. Yeah.
I think the great thing about that, like after winning the national title, Jason went to the Europeans. He wasn't even a seeded boxer. Come back with the gold medal, got to the world final, and now he's joint number one in the world. So if you just even look at it from a purely statistical, numerical point of view, from being unseeded to now joint number one in the world, just proves the catapult he has had in 2013, Charlie.
Yeah, and Paul, I mean, we've seen some good boxers coming out of the county and over the years, but I mean, this guy then, as Alan said, going to the World Championships, and I mean, I know we're biased, but I still have the feeling that if he had a day's rest, if the other guy hadn't had a day's rest, it would have been a very different result that day.
Yeah, I think he was in the Lions' Den that day as well. But I think we were talking about all the young talent. I think he's definitely a gold medal prospect the next Olympics and onto the professional ranks after that, and without a doubt a future world champion. There's no question. It's everything, his dedication, everything that he does everything. You read about him all the time. Chris has done a lot on him. I've read them. He's just so dedicated. He's a perfectionist. All those things, he's had that. He's single-minded, goals all the time. And as you said, I think a day's rest and he would have been the world champion.
Yeah, and Chris, we'd love to see him hang about and go to the Olympics because we all think he'd have a great chance. But there is a sort of a talk in the air about the professional side of thing, and you can't blame him because obviously it's going to be a short career whatever way he stays, amateur or professional.
Yeah, I suppose he's fortunate in one sense that he's only 22 years of age, turns 23 in May. Like, he's got age on his side and time on his side, but I suppose the unfortunate thing with the Olympics, it's 3 years away. It's three boxing cycles away. There's a lot can go wrong within that. And if you look at 2014 for Jason Quigley, if he stays amateur, he's got nothing after the Irish Senior Championships in February. He might do, you know, a few circuits, like a few Grand Prix and a few things, but for me, and like I would love to see Jason Quigley hang about for the Olympics. For me, I think he probably has to go pro. Like there's offers on the table and stuff, and here this week his father like giving out that the AABA are basically, you know, they're doing nothing. You know, and like Jason Quigley could be sort of, I suppose, the poster boy for Irish boxing for 10 years. But personally speaking, if somebody was to come and ask me what should Jason Quigley do, I think he should go pro. I think he should strike when the iron's hot, because, as I said, there's too much can go wrong. Yeah. You know, and if we look at the calibre of boxer that Jason has beaten in 2013, it's been absolutely amazing. Like, Darren O'Neill was, as I said, the Irish boxing captain for the 2012 Olympics. The likes of Evan Krytov, the Ukrainian, he turned pro and won his first fight actually last week as a pro. He was the world number 1 and the reigning world champion when Jason fought him in the European semi-final. Yeah. The Romanian Giratoni was the world number 3. He also beat the world number 4, all in the European Championships. And then, like, to reach the world final and come out of it disappointed. Like, Jason was absolutely devastated.
Oh, he was,
you know, and he sort of felt that he hadn't given his all, or maybe hadn't been allowed to give his all, because he was just spent after the semi-final, and the other guy, the Kazakh, Alan Kanuli, he had 24 hours extra rest.
It made a big difference.
But no, going back to your point, Charlie, I think we'll see Jason Quigley turn pro maybe in the coming weeks, because I think it's a decision he has to make before the seniors.
Okay, that'll be interesting. You'll not go to the Olympics. Mark English and Brendan Boyce are two guys that we expect to go to the Olympics in a few years' time. Again, have made tremendous progress, Alan, over the last couple of years. Brendan, perhaps a little bit more, because he's just that little bit ahead of Mark. But Mark English is someone who we've marked down as someone who we can have big expectations from. And I think he himself has basically gone on record as saying what his expectations are.
Yeah, I think a bit like Jason, Mark is a real winner too. Mark's been quite unlucky on a few different occasions. Do you remember he was beaten by the Torso? Do you remember in Estonia a few years ago? He just narrowly missed out this year by 2/100th of a second, I think it was, on an Irish record. But that night at the anniversary games where he came 6th, that really showed kind of the potential that Mark English has, and like we've probably not really doubted him at all here, but from a bigger picture, we know how well thought of he is. Like, so like I think he'd be great to see him in Rio. Like, I would love actually if Jason stayed on. Yeah,
we all
from a purely selfish thing, because
point
I think he really has a
Yeah.
chance of gold medal, and like that's immortality, really. I think.
Yeah.
But as Chris says, maybe the nuts and bolts of it are different there. And Brendan too. He was in London where Mark wasn't. Brendan is improving all the time as well. He spends a lot of time now in Spain, you know, in the warm weather. And you've seen with Rob Heffernan's success too in the World Championships, you know, Brendan and him would train together a lot, so he's learning off the very, very best now at the minute. So Brendan's another guy too we'd love to keep an eye on. And even one day I remember going to a match in Fallon, we passed him in the car. Incredible the speed he was going for a walk.
I think he's running hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of us couldn't run that hard.
Not at all.
Paul, Mark English is somebody you've known from a very young age, and tremendous talent obviously, and again he's got to a stage now where he's going to be judged. Can he move on from where he is and be a real successful senior runner, or is he just going to be someone who showed potential and didn't realise it?
No, again, Mark's one of these guys, very single-minded. You know, he doesn't do the cross-country season, things like that. He gets a bit of criticism for that. I think he's 100% right. He's a track athlete who's going to go a long way. We spoke about this earlier in the summer. A huge mistake was made not taking him to the Olympics last year to get that experience. You know, he will be competing. He's going to be probably the top European 800 metre runner within the next 2 years. I really believe that. You know, again, you have to see what's coming out of these other countries. America have started producing good middle distance runners again, but I think, you know, Mark is definitely going to be a world class athlete. It's a question of, you know, obviously with athletes, injuries are a big thing. You know, their bodies are so finely tuned that, you know, they can pull up. But, you know, remember Mark came 5th in that world final last year, and that the winner of that race took a silver at the Olympics.
Right, yeah.
So you know, he's already world class. It's just you know, he's going to start getting the invites to those big races, and he did himself no harm in London earlier this year. So I'm expecting big things from Mark English.
And he's been steered as well. Teresa McDade's a big influence on him, Chris, and they're really focused on where they want to go. And likewise, as Alan said there, Rob Heffernan is a big influence on Brendan. So they're two young men who have good people around them.
Yeah, and that's so vital. Like, and I suppose the one thing that strikes me about all these people, all these world class athletes we have in Donegal, they're also, I suppose, selfish is the word you use, and I use that in a good way.
Absolutely.
I mean, they know where they want. They know the end game. It's not just a case of going out and let's see how this goes. They've got the target, they've got the goal, and like they're all one thing again, to take it back to Jason Quigley, I suppose, because I would see him very closely and stuff. He basically shuts down for 6 weeks of championship and has no contact at all with the outside world. He genuinely could not tell you anything outside of boxing that's happening. He has contact with, I think, 3 people: his father, his mother, and his uncle Billy. So 2 of those are actually his coaches as well.
Yeah.
But outside of that high performance team, that's the only people that he will talk to. I remember, like, before the Irish seniors last year, met him at the switch on of the Christmas lights in Balbafay, and he says, "Do you want to do a wee piece for the seniors?" And I says, "Sure, they're not to February." And he says, "Had to do the interview there 8 weeks
This will be the last time you see me."
He was almost ready to shut down.
Yeah.
And it's the same, I suppose, for the likes of Mark English and stuff. They've just got their...
They've got to be selfish about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose the good people around them, again, you're the likes of Conor Quigley, the likes of Theresa McDade, and like Theresa McDade is probably one of the, like, she won the Coach of the Year from the Irish Athletics twice in a row. Like, that's a fantastic achievement when you consider the calibre of coaches that are in the country.
Absolutely. Shimmy Coleman, Alan, I mean, his star gets brighter all the time, really. He's a regular now at the Republic of Ireland. Should have been sooner than he was. He's captained them. He's one of the best players in the Premier League. I mean, it's incredible to say about a guy who not that long ago was playing for Sligo Rovers and, looked a good player, but didn't give any sign that he might turn out to be as brilliant as he has.
Yeah, there was a picture on Facebook a few weeks ago of Shimmy winning a tackle with Samuel Eto'o, and someone wrote below it that in 2006 Eto'o had won the Champions League and Shimmy won the Donegal League with St Catherine's. But it was actually the day we were down in Cork, actually, us lads, Donegal, were playing this and we watched. Do you remember Everton played Man City that day? We watched it.
Yeah.
And I think at that time Shimmy was kind of struggling. He was in and out. He wasn't really getting his place. And even though we all wanted him to go to Poland, he was still unlucky, but he didn't really have the best season before and leading into 2012. But that day, I remember just thinking he had a great game and hopefully that would keep him in the team. And since that, he's been absolutely phenomenal, I think, and I was watching the Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira the last night, and even though they're completely different characters, there's a lot of Keane, I think, in Coleman. He really committed sort of player, like at the start, played a lot of heart, really had a dream and went for it. Even at, like, in Shimmy's early days, but like Keane, a little bit raw sometimes, but like once he got to the big club, he didn't give up. He wanted to get better and better and better, and like that's exactly what Keane did at United, and I think you can see Shimmy now, he's just so comfortable on the ball, and it's great to watch. And like, I suppose he got the ultimate honour this year when he got to captain Ireland. He got the wristband against Wales for the closing minutes of a friendly, and then the Germany away, And like, there's options probably going to open. There's rumours, with Man United in the summer. There's rumours about Arsenal, but at the minute, I think he's at a really good team with a good manager, and they're very impressive. And actually, they're probably the best team in the Premier League to watch. But it's such a competitive league this year. Like, Everton, as good as they've been, they're still only 5th in the table. So it's interesting.
I think they're the second best team in Liverpool as well.
I knew you wouldn't miss that. Even you begrudgingly would say Shimmy Coleman's progress, Paul, is
fantastic.
incredible.
I just saw this morning there, he's actually named on Ian Wright's team of 2013. Ahead of Zabaleta and guys like that. I mean, Zabaleta's another man, had a fantastic season, and when the likes of Ian Wright is naming Shimmy Coleman and his team of 2013, he's absolutely just progressing. There's a lot of talk in the summer about Leighton Baines going to Man United, and I was hugely surprised that it wasn't Seamus Coleman that David Moyes had come back looking for. But again, I think David Moyes he tended to hold back young players a lot, and he seems to be doing the opposite at Man United. He has young Zanige in there, but no, Coleman he's just come on in leaps and bounds, and again, it shows a lot of people that he came through the League of Ireland. There's so many guys out there selling the dream to young kids about going across the water, and if you don't make it by 15, you're finished and stuff like that. It's such a load of nonsense. Shimmy Coleman's probably more grounded. He's probably more determined because of that pathway, that he really appreciates that he's there every week, living the dream. I mean, to think that he was playing with St Catherine's first, and then playing Gaelic with his local club. Then there now you turn on the TV in the Premiership, there he is playing with the second best team in Liverpool.
It's fantastic. Absolutely, it's a real honour for him. And I mean, Chris, hats off to David Moyes as well, because I always judge where players are with managers when they're out injured, and maybe the team does okay when they're out injured. It seemed to me that as soon as Coleman was fit, and he had a couple of injuries and he was out for 4 or 5 weeks, he always got basically straight back in again. If not, he was on the bench and got on right away. So Moyes saw that in him, and as Paul said, I'm surprised he hasn't been back for him so far.
Yeah, and I suppose Moyes was the man that came to Sligo Rovers and paid 200,000 or whatever it was for this kid who was unknown. I mean, for a Premiership manager to be coming to the League of Ireland and spotting Seamus Coleman playing right back for Sligo Rovers was, it was one of the bargain buys I think that David Moyes made. And just going back to what the lads were alluding to, I think Seamus Coleman's career actually has benefited, as Paul said, by not going over at maybe 14 or 15, because I think personally if Seamus Coleman had went to England, I don't think he would have made it, because you look at right backs, he would probably have been curtailed, and maybe just held back too much. But he's gone now, and he's got that real sort of dynamic edge to him. He just goes for it all the time, and I think he's actually flourished because of his lack of top level coaching.
Talk about this academy system in England, and what it's doing is, it's breeding athletes and not footballers. And that little bit of rawness and that little bit, Shamey has that willingness to take a man on down the outside, which you don't see it anymore. You don't see somebody getting.
It's interesting, Paul, to make that point, because John Devine had an article in one of the national papers last weekend about going over to Arsenal at the time, and he reckoned the only reason he survived was because Brady and Stapleton and O'Leary were there to look after him. He said it was a horrible time and he was homesick and he didn't get on. But Coleman has a certain maturity about him as well. He handles himself very well with the media, and he's obviously very comfortable where he's at in life, and maybe that's a good grounding in Killybegs as well, standing to him, Paul.
Yeah, I would say so, and I suppose there's a great Liverpool-Irish connection, always has been, then you have guys like Shane Duffy are over there at Everton too, and I would say he was able to settle in pretty well, because Everton had a couple of Irish guys in their books at the time, and I think Shane Duffy was over, maybe was it around the same time or maybe a year before him.
Kevin Sheedy actually was
the youth team
as well.
So there's always been that over there. But again, the fact that you're that little bit older going over, it can't hurt. There's so many kids that you've heard over there that went over. They're homesick. They can't hack it. And John Devine and them, the time they went over, I suppose Irish people weren't that welcome in England at the time. Back in the early 70s and things. But no, it's he does everything right. He's an absolute. He's a manager's dream. Yeah,
and Alan, just to finish on him, I mean, if he got the chance, we mentioned earlier on, if he got the chance to go to one of the perceived big clubs, is now the right time for him, or would he be better staying in Everton for another season? Because I mean, they're doing reasonably well, but as you say, and was pointed out, Moyes was perceived to have done very well, but they won nothing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Moyes is getting a lot of stick now at the minute, with United, but he did lay a solid foundation there for Martinez to come in, because we all saw Wigan last year and thought, Martinez will do okay, but no team can defend of his. Yeah. But I think Shamey would probably be ambitious enough to think maybe he could move it on. I think a lot will depend if Everton get that top four, because I've seen Lukaku was on television 2 weeks ago and he says he would really consider moving to Everton, when the fall time, if they get into Champions League. And that could really be a springboard to a team. Yeah. If they get that, because even like players like Gareth Barry are still only on loan there, the young Spaniard Deulofeu, who's just got injured, but he's only on loan. But I think if they can get into Champions League, they can
easier to keep players
from there.
In.
Absolutely, but I still think Shamey might harbour a notion of maybe just another little step up. But I don't know. I'm sure he's happy where he's at in life right now. Because
I think he'd be a great fit at Arsenal with the style of football
they
play.
Suit him well.
I think Arsenal would suit him.
Definitely not as Spurs the way they're playing.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that later on. Chris, I'm just going to move on because there's so many young people who have impressed. Martin Harley, another young guy, and I have to thank Pádraig Breston from Killybegs, who brought him to my attention a couple of years ago, and I mentioned in the column in the paper how well he was progressing. But since that, I mean, Martin Harley's career, he's got over the 100 wonders this season. He signed for Marco Botti's stables. He's going to be number one. He's won out in France. He's been in America. He's won a classic already. I mean, this is a guy going places.
Yeah, and again, I suppose it's a guy that would be right to say came from nowhere, came from nothing, but had the dream of in his field getting to the top, and by God, he has certainly done that. Like he's at some fantastic winners. Was it the 1,000 guineas? Last year, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
That sort of really brought him to maybe national attention. Yeah, like he had been sort of winning on the circuit now and again. But at that stage, his career really, and
he was recognised as the top apprentice at that time as well. So, yeah, you're right.
and
Around that time, people started to say this guy's got talent here.
And he's now riding the stable jockey for the Body Yard, and again for the likes of Marco Body, who was looking to get inroads in the race training circuit. For him to take a punt and make Martin Harley his stable jockey was, I think, a testament to where Martin Harley's career is at and is going.
Absolutely.
Was it there last week? He had a
four-timer,
absolutely ridiculous price.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Mike Shannon spoke very highly of him, Alan, which is always a good thing, and encouraged him to make the move, because Shannon had been very good to him, and Martin has said that, and he said that to me when I was speaking to him, how well Mike Shannon looked after him. But Mike Shannon said to him, this is too good a move. He was selfless, really, and saying to him, go on, away you go, great for you.
Absolutely, and it's maybe the Coleman situation again here. I remember being out in Harley's house now, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. We kind of used to do features on Up and Coming, and even at that stage, he was very determined. But to be honest, I never ever thought he'd reach the levels that he did. But even then, he had the gift of the gab. When he would talk, and he was a bit determined, a bit like Chris said when Jason Quigley in 2005. But you wonder, but then when you actually see the way it develops for young people, it's great to see him doing so well as well.
Yeah, and Paul, I mean, it's the type of sport, if you can do well in, it's a wonderful career. And I mean, there's a lot of races, a lot of horses, a lot of jockeys, and a lot of them just stay at a certain level and never get any further than that. But this guy's shown, even in these early days, he has the potential to be one of the top.
Yeah, but it comes back to what we were talking about with the other guys. It's that single-minded determination to make the very top. Because you look at the other sports we're talking about. There's the trappings of the rich lifestyle. There really isn't that in the horse racing. It's a grind every day, up at 6 a.m. out there with the horses. I mean, they have a great grounding to start off with. The apprentices, the way they're put through the stables and stuff and doing that work, and they earn their keep, and they do it every day. They go out and ride 5 and 6 races a day, and as we've seen in the last year, any race could be your last. There's been a couple of tragedies with jockeys, and that they have to be supremely fit. I mean, they're controlling those animals. It's just
and disciplined in terms of what they can eat and what they can drink and everything else.
That, So it comes back to what we were talking about, that dedication. And Martin Harley's another one that has that single-mindedness, that he wants to make the most out of that career, and he's doing a fantastic job. Absolutely.
Well, a role model, AP McCoy, had another treble there in the last day or two. He's heading for 5,000 winners, and I mean, it's incredible to think nobody has got the 3,000 other than himself. I think the next one's 2,700, and then Ruby Walsh is 2,500. But AP McCoy, absolutely brilliant. Philip Dagenham, Alan, another young local lad who you know well, and he's going to be riding for Sky Team Now, who probably are recognised as the top cycling team in the world, and he's going to have his first outing with them, I think, towards the end of January in America. Another big step up for him, but again, a young lad who's been building up towards it and showing, working with other teams, that he has the potential. And within these teams, you have to work in a certain way. And I saw the Sky principal talking about him, and he talked about him in glowing terms.
It's an unbelievable move for Philip, because after he won the stage in the Tour of Spain 2009, his career seemed to be slipping a little bit. He had an awful lot of bother with injuries and illness. But this year, he was riding a lot, in California. I used to watch him a lot at night on Eurosport, and he was really kind of getting back up towards the top rank there. But he needed that break and someone to take a chance on him, like Team Sky did. So Team Sky did. He's down from America. So now he's down for the Tour Down Under. And a really big one next year is the Giro, which a lot of riders from this part of the world will be more interested in the Tour de France, because the fact it's going to be in Stormont as well.
That's right.
Philip now, I suppose he's 30, and he's been around the block a little bit, but he's experienced, and he knows, as you said there, he's going to have to, be a domestique in whatever
role for him.
But he's very, very strong climber, which probably gets him up from the normal domestique. But he's a guy too you'd love to see doing really well, because he's kind of been fighting against the system the whole time with these injuries, and every time you think, he's nearly there. Even this year, after such a great season, he fell then in the Tour of Britain, missed out in the World Championships in Italy. But if you've seen that on television, he was probably better off. It was a complete monsoon.
That's right.
There was teams pulling out. The whole British team pulled out of it. So it's a really, really big year for Philip. But I think it's something he really deserves, because he has put in a lot of graft down the years, and it's a real, no more than Coleman, another fairy tale sort of story. Philip went down to the Tour de France in '98 in Dublin. Had never cycled a bike before in his life. He went down with his friends. They skipped off to a pool hall, and he stood on the street on his own and watched it, and then took the
this is
notion
for
then.
me.
So his father Jerry used to deliver milk.
Yeah.
So Philip used to help out on the milk run. Bought himself a bike. He was quite old at that stage, maybe 14.
Yeah.
And just went from there. So
Yeah,
another
Chris,
great story.
you've talked to him during his career as well. I mean, again, a sport, incredible sport. They're on the bike for 7 and 8 hours, and the sacrifices they have to make and that sort of thing. This is a wonderful break. And as Alan said, maybe he's 30, but he's young in cycling terms as well, because they can go on well into their 30s.
They can, and I suppose one thing caught me about Philip Dagnan was he had a very bad sickness a few years ago when he was based in France, and I remember talking to him. It was around this time of year, you're doing a year in review and talking to different people, and I remember speaking to Philip, and the poor guy was just he was at a real low ebb, and I remember thinking at the time, geez, here's a guy that could actually give up the sport, and it would have been easy because he had so many knockbacks, and every time he got up, knocked back down again, got up. Yeah. And as Alan said there, like, he was constantly fighting against the system and constantly nearly fighting against himself, because it wasn't that he was doing anything wrong. It's just his maybe immune system was kind of down at the time, and just couldn't get himself back. And I think it's fantastic to see him make this move, and really, really hope that he can make a go of it, because obviously, I mean, Team Sky and these people, they don't come in for you. They don't just come in and feel sorry for poor Philip Dagnan, let's give him a break. They obviously see that he has something to offer, and hopefully he does offer that. Well,
I'm sure he will, and Paul, he's going to be in the same team as Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome. I mean, this is big stuff. This is like Coleman playing in the Premier League. He's at the top now, and a wonderful opportunity for him maybe over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's, and the big one that the boys are saying here, it's staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a contributor to that team. And they're saying too, these teams always, they pick out a leader who's going to who they're going to back in that race, and you have to work for the team. And again, it's long overdue from, I suppose, and probably but for the illnesses and injuries he had over the last 4 or 5 years, he probably would have been there before now. So hopefully 2014 is going to be his year. Yeah.
A couple of other things just want to mention quickly. Chris, Chloe McGee over from the Finn Valley area as well. Big year ahead for her also, and I mean, she's done a lot, but she might feel there's still much to do. I know she's playing in Germany. Her club play badminton team now, and that's a big help to her.
It's huge, because what it's given her, she's playing in a league with the top badminton players in Europe, and she's getting that big game experience week in, week out, and it's been a real learning curve for her. Like a couple of weeks ago, the week before the Irish Open, she beat a girl who was a medalist at the last European Championships, and the confidence that Chloe took from that now going in, like 2014 is a massive year for her. She's got the European Championships, I think they're March, April time, and then the World Championships in Denmark in August. So 2014 is huge. Now, I know I spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, and her aim is to medal at the next European Championships in 2016, which of course is the Olympic year, and she's already got her eye on Rio and sort of the cycle that she has to do to get to that. But that move to the team in Germany has been fantastic for her, because she's learning every week. Like where she was before, she was playing more regular badminton but at a much lower level. So
one and all the time, which is not healthy either.
People were sort of looking at her career this year and saying, has Chloe taken a step back? But she's actually taken a step up. So rather than winning kind of Division 2, she's now maybe finishing, getting to quarter semi-finals at the top division, which has been fantastic progress.
For her. Alan, the Boyle cousins, Declan and Brian's had a tremendous year in the rallying, and I mean, they won 5 races, and the other ones I don't think they finished because of mechanical problems. It's been fantastic. Crown Dunlop national rally champions after a most consistent season. So again, 2 guys, and I heard I think it was Declan being interviewed, and he was saying they were better at the one-day stuff, but I mean, they'll probably look now in the new year and then to do better in the international events, because they have nothing left to prove at the national level.
Absolutely, yeah. Like to drive the Subaru, would keep keeping a good eye on them, and they seem, as you said, everyone they kind of went for Charlie, they seemed to nearly win it, and the stories were coming back were all very positive. They had it wrapped up quite early too. I think they wrapped it up in August
very
with
early,
a couple in hand. So as you said, now it'd be interesting to see where they're going to go with it as well. But 2 very accustomed and a good team as well. Good, obviously good understanding there as well.
Absolutely, we wish them well in 2014. I better mention Larissa Muldoon and Nora Stapleton. They were part of the Irish rugby team that won the Triple Crown and the Grand Slam, the first time the women had ever done that at rugby. So well done to the 2 girls. Moving on to soccer, Paul, and just before I go to the Harp situation and Ollie Horgan's appointment, Ulster Senior League, Cockhill and Drumkeen fought it out and did very well. And in the recent weeks, Cockhill and Letterkenny did very well in the FA Intermediate Cup. I mean, Cockhill are through to the next round. Letterkenny should be. We were at that game in Lakeview, and they should have won that game. So a bit of a boost, and of course the League One and the Interprovincial is a bit of a boost as well. Can they build on that now?
Well, I suppose, I think we look at it. I always feel the standard in Ulster Senior League is very good. I mean, obviously, we always say we don't have enough teams. The remedy to that, nobody seems to have an answer to.
Yeah.
You've got to first of all have clubs that have the ambition to play at that level. You have to have players that want to have the ambition to play at that level. But I think all in all, overall, it was a good year for the Senior League. Drumkeena and Cockhill were obviously the two standout teams this year. Cockhill are on a nice wee run in that Intermediate Cup. Their next game is St Machtas. St Machtas, I think, are in the 3rd division in Leinster, and they've drawn 8 of their 11 games this year. Crumlin were second in the Leinster Senior League top division, and they went down there and got their draw. So I think Cockhill will fancy their chances. I suppose I suppose the big worry for them is Ollie Horgan going to be knocking at the door looking for a couple of their players. Yeah,
and lack of matches as well. They'll probably arrange a few friendlies and that, but this obviously the season's different, that type of stuff. Is that a big disadvantage for them?
Yeah, it's certainly. There's been a lot of talk on Facebook and things. You're almost, the fact that you're playing a summer season, you're nearly writing off the Intermediate Cup to a certain extent, and I suppose part of the argument against that is, well, you can't base your whole season on one game potentially anyway, because half of our teams go out of the Intermediate Cup in the first round every year anyway. But I suppose since Fanad's heyday, you've had Letterkenny have been to semi-final, Kildrum have been to semi-final, Fanad have been to a semi-final, Swilly have been there. Nobody has done it year on year. Nobody's consistently pushed their way to latter stages of the competition, and that was also when we were playing winter football. That wasn't happening either on a regular basis. It was whoever happened to be strong that year maybe was given it a run. I certainly think Cockhill are well equipped to give it a real go. Maybe the lack of matches, then the League of Ireland teams are probably going to be starting up soon, and they might pull a few friendlies out of that. I think when I used to manage the Kenny Rovers, we always started the season playing Irish League teams and League of Ireland teams because it made you work so hard because of their extra fitness and things like that. So if they can pull us one of those games, maybe.
Good for them. I'll stay with you. Harp's disappointing season, and ended disappointingly with Peter Hutton leaving and all sorts of stuff going on and being said. Nothing unusual, I suppose, when it comes to the Harp situation. And a big surprise when Ollie Horgan was appointed, more so because the name was kept from the likes of these two boys here to my left, that they hadn't a clue.
Everybody seemed to think it was Joe Boyles.
Everybody was naming everybody, and Ollie somebody came from left field. But I mean, he's a guy you've crossed swords with in the past. I mean, and he seems to have been working very hard in the last couple of weeks to get things going at Finn Park. I mean, but listen, Paul, let's call a spade a spade. He's got an uphill battle there.
Yeah, I mean, the Harps job, I suppose, it's nearly a poison chalice here, because you always feel that every time too that somebody comes through and they're looking good, that they're nearly destined for Derry City.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big ask, and I suppose maybe Harps are looking at it. By all accounts, Ollie knocked the interview out of the park, that he blew them away at that stage. He's got a great knowledge of the local scene. He's managed Ulster Senior League representative side. He's managed Fanad. He's been around the block. He's been involved in local football for over 20 years here. So he'll know the players. He'll certainly know the intermediate side of the game. And as always, there's always a half a dozen players that are playing Ulster Senior League in any given year that are League of Ireland ready players.
Yeah.
So it's a matter. Do they want to give up their weekends in terms of going to Cove and going to Waterford?
Bigger commitment required.
Big commitment.
Yeah.
I think the money isn't there that was in the League of Ireland in previous years, so that probably the pay for these guys isn't as good. But I suppose you hope a lot of them they're not there for the money. They're there because they want to be senior footballers.
But you crossed that line, Paul, of playing junior intermediate football to play senior football. I mean, it's a step. I mean, you might have the ability, but you have to have other things going with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, because the fitness level is everything. They have to be there, and if Harps are, they have to be running either their under 19s or their reserves, because you can't have guys with no game for 4 or 5 weeks coming in and stepping in. I mean, at the time I was up at Harps, there was nothing around the first team. If you weren't in the squad for the game at the weekend,
idle.
Then you were idle, and you were going 5 and 6 weeks without a game, and then all of a sudden you were maybe asked to come in and play a match, or go to Cove or down to Kilkenny or somewhere and play a game, and you hadn't had a game in 4 or 5 weeks, and you just can't do that. So you have to have that around the team, that everybody's playing matches, and it's a step up. There's no doubt about it. There's extra commitment, extra sacrifice. There's all those things required to do it, and I think there's the players here in Donegal to do it. It's do the players
do they want to do
it?
Do they want to do it? Alan, were you surprised Ollie Horgan's appointment? Did it catch you left field?
A little bit, because we just heard he didn't really come out. There's a couple of names kind of were behind the scenes. A few others were in the media quite a lot, but kind of just heard that morning, Charlie, and just actually texted.
Well, what was your reaction when you heard it?
I was actually delighted for him, because it's good to see for the likes of the Ulster Senior League where a man can go there and work hard, which he was at Fannin for the best part of 10 years as a manager, and then beforehand, Paul as a player as well. So it's good reward, I think as well. And he's a fella too. I would have been in St Junan's College. He would have taught me there as well. So like a real good football man. He's actually a neighbour of mine as well. So you'd always, to talk football to him, and he's involved with Irish schoolboys. He's a good depth of knowledge too, and actually was delighted now when I heard the news.
And were you surprised that he wanted the Harps job, Alan?
A little bit. We'd heard before that he might be interested, he might not, but I suppose maybe he saw it as progression, from his own point of view. As I said, like he's put in a lot of the spade work there. Paul says he knows the local scene well, so apparently in the interview too, the one thing he really kind of understood the budget and the requirements to work within it. I think that was really what swung it his way, because it's going to be tough at Harps this year, because like 2 years ago the county council bailed them out. Charlie, they got a lot of their debts, footballing debts covered. Last year, then there was the sell on of Stephen McLaughlin from Derry City to Nottingham Forest, so that got them
a few pound. Yeah.
This year, that's not really there. And like even you seen last week, like young Liam Martin, Donegal Town lad, he was at Sligo Rovers. Ollie had been in talks with him; they were quite advanced. But once Ballinamallard, got a Satanta Cup spot because of Linfield pulling out. He lost, kind of slipped through the net there. So like it's a tough situation you're finding yourselves in. You really have to kind of get guys to buy into what you're doing, because there aren't a lot of financial rewards for them. And like I think that first division, it's the travel is a nightmare this year. Like the closest team at the minute is the new Galway team or Shamrock Rovers reserves. So
crazy. Yeah, Chris, I mean, you keep your finger on the pulse here in terms of the whole situation, and Ollie going in, and as Alan alluded to there, he understands the budget type of thing, and the sceptics or the cynics would say it was the cheapest option for Harps, which is very, very disrespectful to Ollie Horgan, because if you put yourself in the line for a job like that, you know what you're taking on, sort of thing. But I mean, as Paul maybe said, perceived as the poison chalice, where can he go with it? I suppose that's the big question. Where can Ollie Horgan go with this?
Well, I suppose, and not to be disrespectful to Harps, but there's certainly more scope to improve. I mean, let's call a spade here. Finn Harps can't get much worse than they were. And that's, bottom line, they really can't, So I suppose Ollie's going in there. I mean, he has had a great record at Fannin United, and again, he went in there after Eamon McConaughey left, and it was a job that not very many people would have took on, because winning was something that just happened at Fannin. They had won 10 or 12 Ulster Senior League titles. They were just used to winning. But Ollie came in and he took that job at a time where a lot of experienced men were leaving, and I suppose Eamon leaving allowed them, just sort of packed up and went. But he came in there and he built sort of the Ollie Horgan Fannin United and kept on that winning tradition. And as Alan alluded to, I suppose he was looking at the Harps job, and he had looked at it before.
Yeah, apparently, sort
of thought, let's give this a go. He's got plenty of League of Ireland experience in that. I suppose we didn't really know it until a couple of weeks ago, where he was saying that he's actually scouted for a lot of teams. So he's been keeping his finger on that particular pulse, and that he knows players, knows teams, and obviously feels that there's enough talent in the Ulster Senior League and locally, because I suppose a lot of people have said it's the cheapest option, but I think Alan put it perfectly to say that he can work within the parameters of a very, very, very small budget.
Yeah.
And, Finn Harps are struggling to make ends meet week in, week out. And Ollie, I suppose, is looking at the Ulster Senior League. I know I spoke to him last week about a player or two at Kilrum that he might fancy, and maybe feel can make the step. And I suppose Paul, I think it was, alluded to it. The Ulster Senior League, a lot of people now see this as an appointment of one of their own. Like there'd been a lot of bridges burned between Harps and junior teams and intermediate teams, but I think the appointment of Ollie would be a good thing for Donegal football as a whole, because players know Ollie, players can relate to Ollie, and the only problem is time, Charlie. Like he doesn't have time, and really has to hit the ground running. But he's done it before at Fannin, and like one thing that strikes me, I know 2 weeks ago he met young Kieran Collins St Johnson, had a 2.5-hour meeting with him, and that was the Thursday of the week that he was appointed. He's been doing serious road miles in the car, putting on massive work, so hopefully it pays off for him.
We wish him well. Well, I suppose we'd say, Paul, we'll wish Jim McGuinness well for 2014 as well, because maybe a good year to leave behind us. 2013 didn't start too well. The league didn't go too well. The championship, I suppose, the Tyrone game was the highlight, and that was the first one they played in the championship. I suppose that's the way to put it. But anyway, it ended up disappointing for Donegal, and now we're looking forward to 2014, and there seems to be a different sort of a focus within the whole squad. There's been a change to the backroom team. They look as if they're going to take the McKenna Cup seriously for the first time in years, and there's a tough league campaign starting in February. So big year now. can this team come back and do something big, or did 2012 be it for them and there's nothing more to come?
Well, it's always hard to repeat as champions. I mean, when's the last time we had back-to-back All-Ireland winners? And Kerry did it, what is it now, 9 years ago since Kerry did it 2 in a row. It's I suppose when into 2013, looking at the boys had a big 2011, they had a huge 2012. They probably did need rest. Every player's different, so you have to see, and it's very hard to keep a team going 2 and 3 years without starting to pick up the injuries and those things. Certainly, everything seemed to be on track when the Tyrone game rolled around. I mean, their performance in Ballafay that day, you thought, right, the preparation is done to a T
spot
again.
on,
obviously, we were, down, tried a lot of things to combat Donegal's way of playing, fell short on the day. Come Ulster final day, I think everybody was surprised. I mean, even at half time, we probably all felt that it could still
there.
be turned around, but we just never got going on the day. And down to Carrick and Shannon a week later, again got past Laois, probably comfortably in a way. Weren't overly tested. But I remember I was in England when they played me on Croke Park, and I had it on the computer, listened on the computer, and it was frightful listening. But people forget Jim McGuinness is still a young manager too, and the one thing that Jim has always done is he's always learned. Every year he's learned something, so he's freshened up the panel, brought a few guys in. I think we're still one of the top 5 teams in the country, so it's all there. We've probably got not a bad draw in Ulster again. Derry won't be easy, but if we get through Derry, we should be in another Ulster final. And go from there. And again, I think the big one I think winning the province has proved out to be a big help in the last few years. So, I think there's still a lot there. And I always say any team that has Michael Murphy has a hell of a chance.
Absolutely. Hope for 2014, Alan?
It's a bit like the first year, 2011, all over again. I think the way Donegal are now, I think, everything was building one direction for the first 2 years. Last year was pretty much a catastrophe, probably on and off the pitch, but I think just Jim's getting back down now, get the group together. He's going to hit the ground running. He always called 2011 the traction year, and I think 2014 will be a similar sort of year. As you said, like the McKenna Cup, the squad is very, very strong. They played for Manning and challenged last week. Like you've seen Carl Lacey back in there playing cornerback. You've seen like the Lensway lads were missing now. They were given a bit of leave, but strong team out. I think they have a game against Roscommon now lined up on Sunday week. But I think once the Tyrone roll into Letterkenny on the 5th of January, I think Jim's going to really want to go for it. And it'll be a bit like Division 2 the last time, 2011 as well. He'll want to get confidence back up again. He'll want to get results, get out of Division 2, get momentum going. So
Yeah. Chris, I suppose the danger is starting in January is it's a long time then to championship against Derry in June, and it's a long time then to championship further down the line. So getting that balance right, but obviously, as Alan and Paul have alluded to, getting a bit of confidence seems to be the main thing here now. Yeah,
and I suppose the last few months as well have allowed the injured players, the likes of Carl Lacey, Mark McHugh, who had been struggling week in, week out last year, has allowed them to maybe get their own fitness levels and their own ailments sorted out. So I suppose that's one thing maybe he feels he has to take the McKenna Cup seriously to get these boys back in the loop again and back in the cycle. There's a lot, I suppose, again, can go wrong between now and June, but at the same time, I think while he's going to go for the McKenna Cup, it's still sort of the bottom step on the ladder, and it's sort of just about building. And I mean, winning is a habit, and we saw that in 2011 going through Division 2. And Division 2 certainly won't be a cakewalk.
Because they got 4 away games, starting with 2 away games to Laois and Galway. I mean, you could be pointless after 2 games, and then you've got a struggle on your hands.
Yeah, and then you've got Monaghan coming, and of course, the reigning Ulster champions, and they're going to want to be coming into I think it's Letterkenny.
I think,
they're going to want to be coming to Letterkenny to make some sort of a statement to say, last year's Ulster final wasn't a once-off, and they're certainly going to want to be coming to make a wee statement. But as far as Donegal go, Charlie, I think we can expect to see steady progress for the first few months. And again, it's a long way away, but that date, whatever it is, I think it's maybe the 5th of June, that's still going to be ringed on Jim McGuinness's calendar for the Derry game.
So you're hopeful?
Yeah, very hopeful.
Alan?
I'd be hopeful as well. I'd even think an Ulster Championship would be brilliant again this year. Even if 2013, if we'd have beat Monaghan, that would have made a brilliant 2013,
Yeah, exactly.
Something we probably overlooked at the time.
Paul, same thing, Ulster Championship, aim for that. That's a good start point, and then go on to the next competition.
Absolutely, then. You're playing a quarter final, against probably somebody from a provincial runner-up or the last round of the qualifiers again. So, you're probably avoiding Kerry, Dublin, Mayo, who are all going to be in the shake-up again. So, win your province and take it from there.
Okay. Say well done to the hurlers, on behalf of everybody won on the Nicky record. They certainly did well, and I was there that day in Croke Park when they beat Roscommon. Cracking game, and what was a great year for hurling 2013, but well done to the hurlers. We've got to wrap it up there, lads. We've run out of time. I want to thank Chris Nulty, Alan Foley and Paul McGovern for coming in. Our last show of 2013. We will be back in 2014, whether you like it or not, to annoy you some more with talk about sports. I want to wish everybody a very, very happy Christmas and a safe and prosperous new year, and thank everybody for their support, all the people who've come in to take part in Talking Sport. Far too many to mention, but it's really appreciated. To Tommy and Timmy here at Full Tilt Studios, who've been a great help to me over the last 6 months. Really appreciated, lads. Hopefully they'll have a successful year as well. That's it from this edition of Talking Sport. Keep safe over the festive season, and we'll talk to you again in 2014.